Weird.
Am I in it?
Yeah. I might get one of those robots.
Take a breather.
This is why they do action 467.
How about I just say it?
No, I'll say it all the time.
They don't say
I wanna
that.
say
They
it.
say scene 4, take 67.
Oh, glad you know.
Where's your pen?
It fell.
Did you see the pens that we got in our bags? Mine. Your feelings are valid. Rock on, dude.
Peace out. So we're just, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it was very strong in my girls' heart that they wanted to really kind of dive into this topic. The last 2 years, it's been a huge thing in our home, just making sure that everybody is like mentally okay. In the next few episodes of our podcast and videos, we will be discussing suicide and self-harm, and so it may not be the best for little listeners. If you're like listening to it in the car. So I just want to put that disclaimer on there. It's definitely more in-depth conversation, deep feelings, big feelings, what that has looked like for our family. So that you can just be prepared for that. Welcome back. I'm Christina. I'm here with Brantley and Bailey. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we are starting May off with the initial conversation. What does that conversation look like? If there's somebody new that's really looking in at mental health, if you're familiar with mental health,
If you're struggling with mental health,
trying to start that initial conversation. How difficult is it? I've always felt like mental health, like it was mind over matter. And I've always had that approach, like with my husband and my kids, like, if you're sad, you can do something, you can make yourself feel better. And because that's how I've always tackled it. I've always managed it myself. As far as like if my mindset was in the wrong place, I could change it. And it was up to me to change it. 2 years ago, we just had a really crazy traumatic event in our lives. And without going into detail, it kind of just flipped our entire family upside down. And so we have been navigating that road with our daughters, with our family, and just what brought us to the place of being able to address mental health among our teenagers and where we are today because of that. How did you know that something wasn't right?
Let's take a trip down memory lane. After that happened, I mean, it was kind of a slow progression into realizing what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel comfortable coming to your dad about it. So I looked for friends to talk to. And the more I talked to friends, it was more serious than I made it out to be.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't come to you guys on a day where it was just so unbearable. It just kind of came up.
Mm-hmm.
So I was talking to Dad, and then you came into the room. And of course, after that, you and Dad really didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. And then it kind of went unspoken of for like another year or so.
I don't think it was quite a year. It wasn't a year. It was more like 6 months. Because I think in our head, we had had a conversation. You had kind of like put our mind at ease of like, everything's okay. And then it wasn't okay.
It was not okay.
And you were navigating that, okay, this is not okay, but I don't know how to tell my parents that there's something seriously wrong.
Yeah. And like that is a really hard thing to do by yourself.
Well, you started school.
Yeah.
And so when you got back into school, right? So we've homeschooled, and then you guys were in school, and then COVID happened, and then we were homeschooled again. And so when you went back to school, that is when it really kind of triggered everything again.
Yeah, so I think when I went back to school, me being in school when that had happened. Just going back there kind of, I guess, kind of put me back in that moment, or made me feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
I tried getting over it myself, and it felt like this huge secret that I had to keep. It just kind of made it worse.
Right. So in that, I think it took really one teacher that you felt super comfortable with, that you trusted, was when you were finally able to just say to somebody, like, I think I need more.
Yeah. And
that is where kind of started that journey of how do we help you?
Yeah. That journey was a lot rougher than...
And I think for parents, like, that journey is awful because
you don't know what to do. You don't know what you can provide.
We had never experienced anything like that, or having to look into, like, do we need therapy? What type of therapy? And where do we go to get therapy? Having the conversation with the school, kind of getting guidance from the counselor at the school, maybe what our next step was.
Yeah.
And then talking to your pediatrician, who was really like the one who was like, hey, this is kind of like what we need to do. And I think
pediatrician?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know that.
So I think in talking to her, she kind of set us on this road of like, these are the steps that we had to follow. And like knowing that you needed something more, you needed something really intensive, was really hard. It's not like a broken bone. Like, we couldn't just take you to the doctor and have the doctor fix your bones and you would be fine. Or you cracked your head open and we could get stitches or you would be fine. Like, we couldn't put a Band-Aid on it. Like, kind of like sit back and like know that we couldn't fix it, but just tell you like, hey, we're here for you. Like, we're supporting you. We're hearing, we're listening. And what can we do? And sometimes we couldn't do, there was nothing for us to do.
Yeah.
So in watching us navigate it with Brantley as her parents, like, how was it for you as her sister, and you and Brantley being really close?
Part of me felt like it was somewhat my fault because I felt like I could have stopped it with just communicating how I felt about like the whole situation. And another part of me felt like my problems weren't equivalent. I didn't want to burden anyone with it.
I think that's a great explanation because we have 7 children, and so Brantley was taking up a lot of that. And so just trying to make sure that we were still giving the emotional support to the rest of our children, because, you know, when you go through, I think, big events like that, it doesn't just affect one person or 2 people in the family. There's like a trickling effect to everybody. And we all have issues. Little kids that act out, sisters get emotional, brothers are just like brothers. And so I think it's important when we talk, like, when we're working through something, that we're having those conversations, that the dialogue is always open. Because regardless of how big or how small what you were going through was still what you were going through. And it was still something that needed to be attended to, validated, worked through as parents. You know, we don't just get to pick and choose the child that we're dealing with at the moment. We kind of have to work all of you in. And then remembering events that happen, they're not our fault. And we have to really work to like not internalize them, as far as like, if I would have said something, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Because then we start playing that what if game, which can be a really dangerous game.
Overthinking. Not a good place to be.
We've already determined we're a house of overthinkers.
Whee!
But, you know, just making sure that we're not having that internal conversation of what ifs. What tools in therapy and in learning helped you both the most? And like having those conversations with us to be able to say, you know what, like, today's a bad day. These are my feelings. Maybe I want to hurt myself. Maybe, you know, how
someone else.
or I want to hurt someone else. What helped you to be able to recognize that that wasn't a good feeling? And
so, I mean, like, I'm not going to say that I always had those feelings. I'm just going to say that, like, they were always kind of there.
mm-hmm.
But, like, after that, it was a lot more vivid.
Right.
And it was weird because when I first started, I didn't consider it a self-harm.
Mm-hmm.
But then I told friends and I told the school counselor, and it was like, yeah, that's self-harm. You should probably talk to someone about that. So I mean, when you found out that I self-harmed on a nightly basis, you got really upset with me. But that's probably because that, like, you didn't know how to react to it.
I think for me, you're right. I didn't know, like, I didn't realize it was happening in the house. I did not realize that it was happening in the house. And when we realized you were doing it, we had those conversations with the doctor and we do nightly checks. Like, it was just one, to have accountability, right? Removing any temptation and locking those up was another huge one that I felt like may have been super extreme, but I needed to know that you were safe within our home.
Yeah.
And really limiting your alone time, which in ways I felt like was kind of like invading.
See, that was a really hard one for me because, like, yeah, there were times where, like, I wanted to be alone just so I could self-harm,
Mm-hmm.
but actively trying to eliminate that, it just made me feel weird because I couldn't have alone time just to myself to relax. So I didn't really know what to do, so it just kind of made everything feel really tight.
Right. Which is probably really the importance of making sure that we were having those really deep therapy sessions more frequently. At that time, we were going quite often because the rules at home were so strict to make sure that you were in a safe environment, but that you were also getting that outsourced. Because there's also that walking of how do we maintain a standard at home without pushing you over the edge, because, like, we got to maintain grades, but that could trigger her to cut, or she can't go hang out with her friends because she got a bad grade, or she's not keeping up with her chores. I felt like we did a lot of eggshell walking.
Yeah.
And we just had to slowly move back into our norm. And especially, like, after you came back from inpatient, like, I almost felt like I had to keep you in bubble wrap. And it was like slowly I could unwrap it, right? I could slowly add you, like, give you more responsibility, like more beyond, okay, these are your personal responsibilities. So, like, now you can come and do dishes and you can help. And just integrate you back into, like, normal life within the house.
Weird threading.
It was. And, like, your siblings, right? Like, when you were gone, even when you came back, like, they really had to picked up the slack.
How was it, like, when I was gone?
It was hard.
It was sad. It was really, like, a weird feeling. And I think it was
the house too quiet.
Yeah. But it was different because in two ways. Like, you weren't home, and I think emotions were even worse because it was around the holidays. But two, like, we knew you were in a safe place and you were getting what you needed. But I think it was just that sense of, like, missing you.
Yeah. I think some of the hardest moments for me were, like, when I returned to school and everyone was asking me, like, how my break was and, like, where you were. And I felt like I had no one that I could, like, go and talk to.
Right, because that's such a private...
Yeah. But
do my hands make me feel better. Like,
But with that, there was your one friend that you shared that with who came to me and was like there and like was constantly like giving me hugs and asking just how you were doing, and that made me feel a lot better.
That's good.
now I just want to make sure everybody knows, like, we paused this to make sure Bailey's okay, but she wears her heart on her sleeve, so this is Bailey's, like, outpouring of love and emotions, but she's okay. Like, we've had this conversation. And I think being close with your guys' friends, like, I had to, like, lie to them because really I didn't know how much you had shared with them, and so I, like, didn't want to tell them, oh yeah, she's gone, and I'm like, no, she's just sick.
But like the one friend that you did tell before you went to the hospital, they were there. They like came to me and was like, hey, this is what I know. I'm here for you if you need anything. And it felt like that really.
Knowing that somebody else knew,
Yeah.
and so you didn't feel like you were just having to, like, carry this heaviness.
And then it was someone that like I knew you told, and so like when I would hear things, I could communicate with them and just talk through it.
I have to say the school was, like, super supportive. I feel like there wasn't a time where I couldn't call the school and we could have a conversation. They've done nothing but just try to, like, have conversations with us about, like, how the day is. And even, like, both of you, like, they're going to have lots of anxiety because they have exams coming up. And, you know, I feel the school's done a very good job of just making sure that you guys are, like, in a really healthy place mentally.
There was one teacher who, she's not my teacher, but like she's runs like my advisory. But she had asked me how my break was, and then after she heard what happened, she like came to me, like apologized because she didn't realize what happened. And then she's like, if you are, you can come to me. And then I was able to go to her, and I feel like she is just like being able to not only go to a friend, but also to another adult was really helpful.
Right. I think being able to have that other adult that you can trust sometimes to, like, break the ice.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not okay and I need my parents and I need to be able to talk to them. Without just going straight to the parent. Because I think, again,
going straight to the parent is nerve-wracking because you never know how they're going to respond. And
right.
Sometimes parents don't approve of it. It's like, no, it doesn't exist.
Well, I think, like, even for myself, it really truly wasn't until...
It was a lot of... It felt like I was punching a brick wall without going anywhere in the beginning.
And I think a lot of that was just my own personal feelings about it. Like, you have all the control of how you feel. You can make yourself feel better. And that's not the case. And that was a huge lesson as a parent that I had to learn, was that this is real and we need to address it or something terrible could happen. So as we, like, wrap up, what could be your words of encouragement maybe for parents, like from a teen to a parent, and then maybe to, like, teenagers that maybe are struggling at the moment and need to talk to somebody, or they don't know how to talk to somebody?
So, you want to go first?
How you think your parents are going to react is not how they're going to react. They're not going to be mad at you. In most cases. They're not going to be mad at you. In most cases, how mad you think they'll be at you, they won't be mad at you, but they'll be mad at the event that happened. And that is often confusing because it seems like they're mad at you, but they're really not.
Sometimes it's just I'm sad, right?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I'm sad because, you know, I'm not having a good time at school. So sometimes I think that even when we're going through maybe just emotional moments of our lives, how does that conversation look? Is it the same?
now it's easier to communicate, like if I had a bad day or something. But I mean, just like if parents do drive you to school or something and like they drive you back, just like coming, like bringing up that conversation in the car can help can help set an environment at home to where you feel like you can express yourself in, or just at the same, like, just feel your feelings. Because one thing that I've learned is that, like, avoiding your feelings is not going to do much good. And I can say this because I did stuff my feelings for a very long time. And doing that eventually pushed me to the breaking point of trying to commit suicide more times than once. And it was definitely hard because I didn't know how to express feelings because I stuffed them so much.
How do us as parents open that for a kid who's feeling very sad?
Just like if you notice, like even just slight changes in their mood where they stop doing things that they enjoy, like if they go from periods of time of like, say they like reading where they read a lot and then just one day just stop checking on them, because that's probably a sign that they're going through a rough time.
Okay. And then for like parents, like I think just poking at your kids. I always tell my kids, like, I was in their business before, but I'm in their business now. Like, there's a healthy balance of privacy, and I am all up in that. But I think it's important so that we can keep that open dialogue. And if they're like, I'm fine, I won't badger you, but I will ask you multiple times throughout the night, like, what's going on? And if I notice their attitude is a little bit off, I kind of just keep them close. Or if they're up in their rooms, I check on them quite a bit to just make sure that everybody's okay. But I think just being able to have a calm conversation and maybe more listening and not being reactive.
Yeah. Being reactive is the one thing that your kid's probably scared of.
So just being able to listen and hear you and say, I think it's okay for us to tell them, like, I don't know how to help you, but we're going to find out. We're going to do whatever we can to make sure that you are healthy and you're in a safe place. And I think that once we had that initial conversation, and we started navigating that road, it was a lot easier to help you. I feel like we're a lot more in tune with everyone's mental health.
Yeah. And not even just like mental health, just like feelings.
Right. Yeah, feelings. Just in tune with everyone's feelings. I was a bit emotional, but I think it's important with our kids and our teenagers and just making sure that they know that they have us to talk to and that they feel safe in doing so. Oh, you're feeling better.
That's a poet right there.
But thank you for watching. It was
April, National Poetry Month.
It's May.
It's May, Bailey.
Yeah, last month was.
Thank you all for watching.
Gracias.
And we'll be back next week.
I think that was stellar.
Hold on.